gentlemen, that means it's time for a new edition of your weekday program, The Daily Debate, here on Nile TV International. And I'm your host for tonight, Nancy Sarah Barakat. Tonight we'll be discussing the outcomes of a meeting which was held between President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and his Palestinian counterpart, Mahmoud Abbas, who arrived in Cairo on Thursday. During the meeting, which was held to discuss the Palestinian issue and the prospect of constructive peace talks, President al-Sisi stressed on Egypt's support for the Palestinian cause. Palestinian Authority President Abbas also met with Arab League Chief Nabil Arabi and Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri. The two separate meetings tackled the PA's bid to secure a UN Security Council resolution setting a deadline for an Israeli withdrawal from the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. The meetings also discussed an ongoing wave of upheaval in Jerusalem, which erupted late last month after Israel temporarily closed the Flashpoint Al-Aqsa Mosque complex to Muslim worshippers. We'll also be reviewing the outcomes today of the Arab League's foreign ministers' extraordinary meeting, which was held yesterday to discuss the Palestinian issue. The meeting, which took place here at the headquarters of the Arab League in Cairo, saw Arab foreign ministers meet with President Mahmoud Abbas to draw up the Arab position for the Paris International Conference on the Middle East planned next Friday. The ministerial-level talks will host the Middle East Quartet, which includes the United States, Russia, the European Union and the United Nations, as well as the Arab League, the UN Security Council, and about 20 countries without Israeli or Palestinian participation. So what exactly were the outcomes of Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas's meeting with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi? How do my guests view the outcomes of the Arab League's extraordinary session? To what extent will the French initiative be a success? That and much more will be discussed later on in the hour. But as usual, we like to shed more light on some stories making headlines here in Egypt and in the world today. And starting off with Jordan, where King Abdullah dissolved parliament and appointed a new prime minister to oversee elections. The king appointed veteran politician Hani Mulki as prime minister after dissolving parliament by royal decree following the end of his 4-year term, and charged him with conducting new elections by October. The monarch accepted the resignation of Prime Minister Abdullah Insur, as is customary under the constitution, before appointing an interim head of government. In other news, a week of shipwrecks and deaths in the Mediterranean culminated Sunday with harrowing testimony from migrant survivors who said that another 500 people, including 40 children, had drowned, bringing the number of feared dead to 700. Brought to safety in the Italian ports of Taranto and Pozzallo, survivors told the UN Refugee Agency and Save the Children how their boat sank on Thursday morning after a high seas drama which saw one woman decapitated. With some 100 people missing after the boat sank on Wednesday and 45 bodies recovered from a wreck that happened Friday, the UNHCR said it feared up to 700 people had drowned in the Mediterranean. And to tell us more and for more insights on this particular issue, Dr. Ihab Youssef, international security expert, joins us now over the phone. Thank you very much, Dr. Ihab, for your time.
Good evening, Ms. Nancy. How are you? And hope that you and your audience are in the best shape.
Dr. Ihab, can you hear me?
Yes, hello? Hello, can you hear me now? Hello?
Dr. Ihab, let me start off by asking you how you view the recent report over the migrants issue. And do you expect more migrants to head to Italy, even given the circumstances and given this high death toll?
As you know, a lot of people were trying, even before the 2011 revolution in Egypt and 2012 revolution in Libya, they were trying to illegally immigrate to Libya and to the north, whether they're looking for a job or better lifestyle or whatever. And a lot of these people were putting their lives in very high danger, to the extent that maybe over 70% the ability to succeed and be there on the other side of the sea. Meanwhile, even if they succeed to deliver themselves to Europe, They are there and not legally staying, so they are under surveillance from the police, targeted from them, and they don't live a good life. But they still do this because they see that this is a better life than what they have in some countries in Africa.
Right.
Most of the immigrants come from Africa, from Ghana, from Eritrea, and from other countries, and they have been always, before even the revolution, as I mentioned to Council, they have been always using the route to go to Tobruk and in Libya, and from there they take the boat to Italy, because this is the shortest distance, putting their lives in danger. Before the revolution as well, there was a big project of cooperation between Italy, Europe, and Libya and Egypt to prevent illegal immigrants, one. A second, to provide North African countries with equipment that help in tracing these activities.
Right.
Having said that, and as you know, a lot of problems happened after the revolution and lack of security. So the number of people trying to immigrate there are increasing, and from the estimations that we're hearing, that around between 80 and 90,000 people are waiting on the line to illegally immigrate to these countries.
We heard actually rumors claim that some of the migrants involved included Egyptians. Do we know if this is true?
Some of the traders are Egyptians, and some of the illegal immigrants are Egyptians, because we have seen some of our youth trying to find a better life there, and some of them were able to succeed. The majority were not able to succeed either by being arrested in countries in North Africa before they go, or on their way to Italy, and they are kicked back to their countries.
From your point of view, right.
The sad thing about it is that they pay a lot of money before they do travel this trip. This is very high risky trip. So they collect their money by selling their mother's gold or whatever they have at home to give the criminals who arrange for this trip a big amount of money. And this is where we can give advice to our youth.
Yes.
Is if you're able to collect this amount of money, like 30,000, 40,000 Egyptian pounds, and you are 10 from one same village going into this very dangerous trip with a 10% of success. So if you collect this money and put them in a project that you can do, the 10 of you together, we believe that God will be with you and you're going to succeed supporting your country, being able to find a good job for yourself and for others as well.
Sir, who do you think plays the role of raising this awareness amongst the youth? Do you think it's the government, the media? Whose role? Who has to play that role?
I think it's the Ministry of Youth. They have to have the role in this, the media. But the media is just, from my point of view, is just a transmitter or a tool that can be used in delivering the message. The message should come from the government, should come from the governors and their governorates, and at the same time by providing hope to the youth, by finding good jobs in their country, or at least potentially in the future a job to work on.
Okay, I thank you very much, Dr. Ihab Youssef, international security expert, for your insights. Ladies and gentlemen, before I welcome my guests here in the studio, let's take a look at our first report for the evening and a closer look at President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's encounter with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas yesterday, and then we'll be back to discuss that.
President Fattah al-Sisi met with his Palestinian counterpart Mahmoud Abbas on Saturday and stressed that Egypt supports initiatives and international efforts to resolve the Palestinian cause. President al-Sisi said that Egypt will continue to support initiatives that lead to a fair, comprehensive and lasting peace solution that would help to establish a Palestinian state in accord with the 1967 borders, which would contribute to a better reality, as well as a safer and more stable future in the region. The meeting was attended by officials representing both the Egyptian and Palestinian sides, including Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry, Head of General Intelligence Khalid Fawzi, Secretary of the PLO Dr. Saeb Raikat, Palestinian Foreign Minister Dr. Riyad Al-Malki, Palestinian Presidential Spokesperson Majid Al-Faraj, among others, according to a presidential spokesman. Abbas said Palestine deeply appreciates the honest efforts that Egypt is making to reach a peaceful solution for Palestine, to prevent bloodshed and preserve the rights of Palestinians. The Palestinian president also praised the Egyptian leadership's stances and the efforts made to accomplish peace and establish an independent Palestinian state in accordance with international legitimacy. He also expressed his appreciation for the historic role played by Egypt in supporting the Palestinian cause, as well as Egyptian sacrifices to reserve the rights of the Palestinian people. The two leaders also exchanged views on international efforts that have been made recently, headed by the French initiative and the upcoming International Support Group for Peace negotiations that will be held on Paris on the 3rd of June with the participation of 26 countries including Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan and Morocco. They stressed that the upcoming International Support Group for Peace negotiations will provide a chance for the exchange of viewpoints and the definition of future steps that can be taken. This is Abbas's second visit to Cairo within weeks of President Sisi's call for both Palestine and Israel to reach a solution that establishes peace. Discussions related to the Palestinian issue have been on the rise since President Sisi's call in a May speech to Palestinian and Israeli leaders that peace, prosperity and cooperation will only take place if both parties are able to reach a two-state solution. Negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians have been at a standstill since a U.S.-led initiative collapsed in April 2014.
Be the first to know. The news live at the site of the event. Information on events as they are happening. If it's breaking news, it's Nile TV. For ads on Nile TV, Egyptian Radio and Television Union, the economic sector, info@nileinternational.net or call us on the following numbers.
دي كل واحد يشتغل بضمير.
كلنا نشتغل، احنا نغير نفسنا بس.
الناس تعامل ضميرها وتعامل مرضي الله.
الناس تبقى كويسه مع بعضيها،
هيبقوا كويسين.
كلنا خير ومصر كلها خير.
هي الدنيا، الشعب المصري ده طيب.
لو كل واحد ابتدى بس بنفسه بلد هتتصلح.
كل واحد يعمل ربنا وضميره. الناس تبقى حلوه كده مع الناس.
لازم اخلاق الناس تبقى كويسه، نحب بعض.
الاحترام،
ضماير الناس،
الاخلاق بس.
وان شاء الله ينصلح حالنا بقى.
نتقبل اراء بعض. هي الديمقراطيه، هي الديمقراطيه.
Nile TV International is your gateway to all the breaking news events across the world.
We're the most constant news service of the world. We make all the difference.
The entire world is shifting towards social media. That's why we're following you and we're capturing the latest.
We provide you with minute-by-minute updates of the latest events happening around the world.
Reading beyond the news. Catching the news and following the latest and the most significant events.
You'll still be in the majors. It will be just a different sport.
News updates minute by minute. Where we have been, where we stand now, and where we want to be in the future.
Whatever is making the headlines will bring you the story.
وجدت دوما مصر من أشقائها العرب مواقف تبرهن
and gentlemen, welcome back to our discussion tonight, and I have the pleasure of being joined here in the studio by Ambassador Hazem Abu Shadab, leader of the Fatah Party's Revolutionary Council. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
And as always, we have with us the pleasure of being joined by Mr. Sharif Riz, a journalist and political analyst. Thank you very much for coming in tonight. Ambassador Hazem, we'll start off with you, and let me ask you about your overall impressions, or if you can brief us rather on the meeting that took place between President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and President Mahmoud Abbas.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First, I should express my pleasure today for having my colleague, Mr. Sharif, that I missed him for a long time. So, welcome back. The meeting was very fruitful. It is in like the cooperation, the high-rank cooperation between the two countries, Egypt and Palestine. Studying the next steps of Palestine and the Arabs towards the UN and how would be the next plan for the next period. The French initiative will be on air in a few days. We are talking about 4 days maybe. So how would be the Arab attitude towards the French invitation, and how would it be the demands of the Arabs and Palestine regarding the rights, the absent rights of the people of Palestine since decades. I believe that the meeting was very fruitful, and it was on what to say. If we have any other positive description, would be more than fruitful. We are adopting.
And let me ask you about the role that you hope Egypt will play in perhaps mediating between Palestine and the Israelis, or in the picture as a whole.
It's not only like that, but let me take your question in a position. We believe that Egypt, in a very, very positive and suitable position that can be pressuring and cooperating with the two parties for the sake of having peace in the region. We believe that Egypt is rising again as an important power in the region, and it can be like a conductor for the relations between the countries which are existed and going to be existed in the next future, very near future. I'm talking, of course, about the state of Palestine and the state of Israel. Also, to conduct the relations between the Arabs as a whole among each others. Maybe also, if we are going to have peace in the future between Israel and the whole neighbors of the Arabs, Egypt can also play a role in this road. Right. I believe also that it's not only like that. I believe that we are looking for not only having a role of Egyptian role between the two parties, the Palestinians and the Israelis. I believe personally that Israel is not going to accept the French invitation, and they said that. So I believe that Egypt can play another role on persuading the Israelis for going through the peace track or the political track again for the sake of the peace. If it's not, so I think that Egypt does have few papers can play with for the sake of having the peace in the region.
Right. Let me continue on with Mr. Sharif from where Ambassador Hazem stopped, and that is Israel's position towards the French initiative. How do you see it, and what do you think? Israel always makes up excuses, if you will, to not agree with initiatives or to not really sit down for serious talks. Do you think there is anything that Israel has put on the table with regards to its reservations on the French initiative that can be justified or by its allies?
Well, Israel has had a long history in having good negotiators.
Right.
So technically they would sit and they spend years and years if they can, and they would take long time negotiating. I mean, but they wouldn't give up anything unless you give them some incentives.
Right.
So, and that's how it really works in the world of politics. So the power paradigm is more or less on the side of the Israelis. Technology-wise, education, military power, supported by the Americans, supported by Europe as well. So what we're seeing now is a very unequal situation with the weight of Egypt politically, and if we don't have like also some kind of contribution from the Gulf countries, like promising Israel of economic incentives or something, Israel wouldn't give up anything. So unless the game is a little bit balanced, then we wouldn't see more progress on the table, because they may sit for years and they wouldn't give you anything, because why would you give you anything?
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because President Mahmoud Abbas pointed out that once the terms of a peace agreement are reached, 57 Arab and Islamic states would then recognize and establish relations with the State of Israel. Do you think that Israel would want that? Do you think that it would want peace, if you will, or to establish relations, obvious relations? Obviously, it's got relations with a lot of other countries that aren't out in the open, if you will. But do you think it would want that, that would serve as an incentive to it?
They got their own calculations.
Right.
Like if they calculate it would work economically on their side, and also in terms of security, then they would kind of consider it very seriously. So it takes a lot of time and a lot of details to really know the terms. But we know only the surface of the information. Deeply, the ambassador might know more. Right. Because he might be more involved than that.
Right. Let me come back to you then, Ambassador Hazem, because when we look at the situation as it stands, obviously you've got, yesterday there was a meeting of an extraordinary meeting at the Arab League's headquarters of the foreign ministers of Arab states to agree on a unified stance with regards to the Palestinian issue. Now the thing is, even if the Arabs unite on a joint vision, but you've got the other party saying, I don't agree to what you're bringing to me on the table, how will the Paris talks ever take off or lift off?
Okay, the equation is different now.
Okay.
So basically, the samba needs two parties. But if there is no two parties, there is no samba. But there is a resolution. So what's the new equation? It is, I believe that the international community must be convinced that we need peace. Not only the Palestinians, I'm saying that the whole international community does need peace. So peace in the region means that there should be a solution for the issue of Palestine, which is the main issue of all what's happening in the region, in the Middle East, either the small Middle East or the larger Middle East. So this must be the first base. My opinion is that the international community did understand now that this equation and the reason of all the reasons which is happening in the region is the Palestine issue. So the choice of having two parties to go for negotiations to bring peace now has expanded how much? It extended almost 22 years with no reason. So we are supporting a new vision, a new equation, which means that if there are no two parties, so you can bring the solution and impose over the parties in the region. The imposing of the resolution or the solution should be with some basic columns, with some basic
foundation.
Yes, can be understood and can be suitable and acceptable from the parties in the region. So that's why the importance of the what do we call it, initiative or thoughts of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi when he said, I'm ready to do so and so, and the Israelis must understand if they are going to accept so, they will have so and so. So this means that he's expanding and he is giving some iron legs for the French initiative. It can be for that, it can has legs to stand, columns to stand on and continue the question. Okay, so it is like that. As my colleague Mr. Sharif did say, that if there is no something can be presented for the Israelis, they are in a position of power. So that's why they are aggressive against the Palestinians and the Arabs.
Are you worried now? I mean, looking at Israeli politics, you've got a lot going on inside Israel these past couple of days. You've got a I can't find the words to describe Avigdor Lieberman, but you've got a
Doberman?
Lieberman.
Okay. Maybe it's suitable. Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
A hardliner, if you will, to put it nicely. But he is going to be the Minister of Defense. That has caused a stir within Israeli politics. How do you see that? How do you see that particular shift to a more hardline sort of government that could obviously have a negative effect on the lives of Palestinians?
This is the risk. So we are watching how did Benjamin Netanyahu reacted to the initiative of the Egyptian president. Mr. Sisi did say that we are ready for peace and we are extending our hands for the peace. Not only us, but also 57 countries are ready to 1, 2, 3, 4. So what did he do, Benjamin Netanyahu? He said, okay, most welcome. And he pushed that fundamentalist Lieberman to the front and asking him to take the authority of being the war defense minister of war of the Israeli army. So is he pushing Lieberman with his extremist attitude against the Palestinians and maybe the Arabs? Or is he trying to make him involved in the lagoon and to make him a part of the next steps Israel is going to have in the future? No one knows until now. But I believe, personally, that as I said a year before, that the Israeli government is not going to last for a long time, and it's going, after 1 year, we are going to see some changes happening in the Israeli government, and it's happening nowadays. So Lieberman is invited to prove that he wants either this way or that way. Is he going to go for the peaceful road, or is he going to be in a confrontation?
Do you think his posting will be approved, though? I mean, there's still a chance of it not passing.
I believe that we, the politicians, can use what's happening in Israel in this way. We should push them towards the peace, and they have to show us what do they want. Do they want peace or they want war? Do they want peace or they want blood? Do they want peace or they want fundamentalism? They have to express that. I said before, and I'm again repeating, that extremism is not only the face of the Arabs or the non-Israelis. It's also a face of Israelis. We saw the child which was burnt alive by the Israelis. We saw the families that were burnt while they were inside their houses, killing the father, the mother, and the children, the little children in the houses, doing nothing but they are sleeping. So the Israelis do have fundamentalists among them. The Jews are also fundamentalists, as the Arabs and the Muslims and the Christians do have some. But these are minorities. The Israelis are invited to go to the club that shows that they are also against extremism, and extremism is not only belonging to one religion without the others. Extremism is extremism with no religion, with no nationality, with no nothing. It is extremism. The Israelis must be in a lullaby with the international law, and the Israelis must show that they are respecting and going in coordination with the international community organizations and the peoples of the region, so they can stay alive and continue their life with us.
Right. Let me ask Mr. Sharif rather the same question. How you see internal Israeli politics now that there is a very high possibility that a hardliner is going to occupy the Ministry of Defense?
No, it wouldn't change much of the general policies of Israel. They got like certain policies and they calculate everything. So it wouldn't change radically their attitudes. Their attitude that we are on the stronger side, so we use the time, we play with the time, we spend more time with them, but wouldn't give up anything unless we are really sure that we have to. Unless you force the Israelis to sit on the table, and unless they feel that they needed to offer something, they wouldn't offer it to you.
Right.
I mean, the international community is not really pressurizing, because they wouldn't have any interest to pressurize Israel. Besides, if you look at the history of Israel, the time they had the deal with Egypt, they had to. They know that Egypt give them one blow, and this blow actually would be kind of a threat in the future. So they want to secure this side from the Arab region, and they would be secured from the side of Egypt. So they would actually be able to mess with the Palestinians, mess with the Syrians, mess with the Lebanese, and Egypt is neutralized. So in this scenario, so they would feel, okay, Egypt, stay aside. We are messing with them. You just can only denounce or do something like that, but you wouldn't interfere.
Right.
So this was politically well played. So if you come now to the right situation, it's the same, it's even worse. We don't even have one card to play against Israel.
Right.
So the Americans supporting them, Europeans supporting them, they are strong inside. They got very good education, advanced country. They produce their own weapons. They are like in military-wise, they are more advanced. They got like all the techniques that they would stand strong and tall.
Right.
They do a lot of economy with the Far East as well, a lot of business. So they wouldn't much need this kind of fair trade agreement with the Arab world as much as they needed it 20 years ago.
Right.
So we didn't use the chances long time ago. It's very hard now to push it. So we need better techniques.
Okay.
So talking
let's
about
get back
peace
to that and
these
perhaps
big words
ask
wouldn't
you.
help much.
Well, let me ask you when we come back after this short break and the following report, it takes a closer look at the Arab League's extraordinary session yesterday, and then we'll be back to ask Mr. Sharif some of the techniques that he believes can or should be used against or for a better peace initiative right up to the break.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas told the Arab foreign ministers at a special Arab League meeting in Cairo on Saturday that the Israeli occupation of Palestinian land must end through the implementation of long-established international laws. The Palestinian president called on Arab states to help in the process of rallying more countries to follow the example of Sweden and Vatican in recognizing Palestine as a state. He also stressed that the Palestinian side is fully committed to implementing all international agreements and said the time has come for the mobilization of Arab and international will in order to help Palestinians gain their freedom. Abbas told the gathering of the Arab League that Palestine is ready to accept a fair and just peace based on internationally recognized UN resolutions in accordance with the 2003 Arab Peace Initiative. French-sponsored peace conference is due to begin in Paris on the 3rd of June. Palestinian President Abbas told the gathering that his side was willing to attend the conference and resume talks, but in accordance with previously stipulated conditions. He also stressed that the peace initiative must have a fixed time frame as well as an implementation mechanism. Abbas referred to East Jerusalem occupied in 1967 as the eternal capital of the state of Palestine and insisted that Israeli presence on any Palestinian land would be unacceptable. He also reiterated the borders of both states must be based on the historic 4th of June 1967 borders, with some very minor adjustments to be negotiated along with some trades of territory. Arab foreign ministers in attendance also expressed their consent for the new peace initiative, and outgoing Arab League Secretary General Nabil Al-Arabi stressed that efforts were being redoubled to get the peace process moving again. He stated that a just and comprehensive peace was the goal of the recent initiative that was put forth by President Fattah al-Sisi, along with efforts being made by France to convene a peace conference in Paris. Al-Arabi blasted Israel as a bastion of fascism and racial discrimination on Saturday at a meeting of foreign ministers to discuss a French Middle East peace initiative. In his speech to the ministers, Arabi said that the country has truly become today the last bastion of fascism, colonialism, and racial discrimination in the world.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Mr. Sharif, if I come back to you to ask you a little bit about your thoughts. You said that we need to give Israel other incentives, if you will, to make the peace initiative or peace as a whole more attractive to it. What do you think some of those initiatives could be?
Basically, what we can offer is like free trade agreements, like real normalization. A lot of businesses going on, exchange of experiences, like declaring that from the side of Hamas that it's Israel is a state, because they always come with this excuse that they want to kind of get rid of us. So now you are a state. Of course, we can, because they are a state. So whether you say it or not, they exist in the world. So lots of these starting points, so that they would embarrass them also internationally, that we are not a terrorist country trying to attack you all the time. We want peace as well. And then let's see what's going to happen afterwards. If we'll see, because their tactics are not really predictable.
Right. Mr. Sharif mentions Hamas, and always it comes up as an Israeli excuse that we don't know who to speak to. You, Fatah and Hamas, are not on speaking terms, and you're fractured, if you will, from their point of view. So who do we speak to when we want to speak and reach a solution to the conflict?
I would throw another question. Do you agree on that? Are you convinced with that? Are you convinced that the Muslim Brotherhood are not in negotiation and in agreement?
But they are in control of the Gaza Strip.
Again, do you believe that they are not in negotiations and in agreement between the Muslim Brotherhood organization and Israel? I believe, and I have the information, that they already signed agreements, not only one agreement between each others.
Right.
So if Mr. Sharif do allow me, I'm not with him in these points. We don't need to convince Israel to go through this position, because they are not in the position that they are in the powerful point, so they can, we need them to approve and to go and, no, it's not like that. The other thing is, for your question.
No, then expand on that. It's not like that, what's it like?
I would tell you. Yeah. On the other hand, it's not like that the Israel, as it is announcing, that whom are we going to discuss these issues with? Is it with Fatah and the PLO or with Hamas? No, it's not like that. These are only media talks, but it's not the truth. And the Israelis do know that. If they are watching now, they know that we know that they are in agreements with them. Notify? I would notify. What did happen in the year 2012? What happened in the year 2014? When the wars against Palestine in the Gaza Strip, what was the conclusion? The conclusion, agreements between the two parties, Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood, and Israel, under the role of Mohammed Morsi and under the role of others. Right. So the Muslim Brotherhood organization is in an agreement with the Israeli government, the fundamentalist Israeli government.
Yeah,
so this is the situation.
Not a comprehensive peace treaty that we're talking about.
No, it's not like that. No, it's only I'm trying to declare, to clarify for the audience how does it go. It's not that simple. No, the Israelis. Do you think that they are in a position that they are in a higher rank, that we want you to reconciliate and to pay for some prices for the Palestinians, and so we are going to give you 1, 2, 3, 4? No, they are not. The Israelis are in the mistaken position, and they know that. The Israelis now are surrounded with the BDS. The boycott of different international organizations they are boycotting the Israeli organizations. Look at what happened 2 days before.
Right, but how
the academics did boycott the Israeli academics.
Yeah, I know that the academics boycotted them a long time ago, but how effective it is?
No, even newly.
Yes, and newly. And that's like academic agreement that they wouldn't deal with the academics in Israel. But how effective it is in Israel?
I would tell you information, if you allow me, Mr. Sharif. The Israelis are now paying prices of the boycott, starting with the number of 1 billion yearly, up to 7.5 billion. And as a price they are paying for the loss of the boycotts which are happening against the Israeli organizations. So this is important. How would you convince the Israelis to go for the peace? I would tell you. How would the Palestinians would be convinced to pay the price of the peace? Right. What's the priority for the society? The priority is to live in peace. The priority is to have our children going to the school and get back again to house, enjoy their time, prosperity, so and so. So they need peace as we need peace. It's not only that they want peace and security. We want peace and security. The airplanes which are bombing the civilians are Israeli jets. It's not Palestinian. We have nothing. So we want peace and we want security. They want peace and they want security. So it's peace and security for peace and security. It's flourishing economy and flourishing economy. So if you allow me, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to give a complete vision, if I can.
I want to enhance the idea that you mentioned about boycotting, which is a card in negotiations, a good card in negotiations. You can add it to all the other cards. So that's all.
Yes,
so
this is
part of the
Sharif knows that I'm weak in front of him, so that's why he's... So it is like that. So it is something like exchanging the benefits for both peoples.
Right, because it's good that you clarify this, because international media, especially Western media, tries to always show that Israel has the upper hand.
And also the price of... We are talking to a foreign audience, so we have to tell them. Also, Israel has existed since more than 60 years, but their people still doesn't feel that they are in a peaceful position. Why? Because they are... Every year they have a war against the Lebanese, the Palestinians, the Syrians, the Iraqis, the Saudis, the Egyptians. They are spreading the war against everyone. So how do we convince them? It's peace for peace.
Right.
Security for security.
Do you think...
Economy for economy.
Right.
The economy is one item of a complete equation. It's not only everything. It's not only the matter. That's why I would tell you why, Mr. Sharif, did I stood up for this position, because the Gulf countries must not be sharing only by using the economy. If you are going this to the Palestinians, we are going to Floyd some. No, it's not like that.
No, it will take a long process, like not just like we'll exchange money for peace. No,
the Israelis also must pay the price, because they are responsible for pushing their people to live under, under an anxiety that we are going to have war next year, we are going to have next month, we are going to have... They are putting their people in this position.
If you go to the public opinion in Israel, if you follow it, then they're not really in that, not the majority are with peace. So that's why if you follow...
There is. Don't you think there's a rising tide?
Did you read the...
But do you think there's a rising tide within Israel of a more, if you will, right-wing or hardline stance, where they are moving more towards an extremist point of view than a moderate society?
I will shock you.
Right.
Again, with the strategy that I told you before, a few minutes before, I would tell you that the existence of Lieberman, again, the extremist Lieberman, may be with a benefit to the peaceful line inside Israel.
Right.
Why? Because he's showing the very ugly face of Israel in front of the world by using this Lieberman. 2 days before, 48 hours before, there was a poll inside Israel. And we were discussing, me and some Israeli high-rank guest on another satellite channel. And more than 60% of the Israelis, of the public opinion, do agree on a peaceful solution with the Palestinians. Why? Because of the the latest Palestinian uprising, which is still running inside Palestine.
Yeah, they agree in principle with the peace, but they wouldn't give up anything.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you. I agree with you. But I'm saying that the existence of these fundamentalists for more than 16 years rolling Israel, and they saw that the result is zero. The Israeli citizen is still feeling terrified of going through war.
Right.
One day, Benjamin Netanyahu tells the Israeli audience that we are going for a war against Hezbollah. Next day he says, no, we are preparing for a war with Hamas. No, we are going for Daesh. After that, he is a maniac person. He is not a stable person. He wants war with everyone. He is terrifying every person inside Israel.
Do you
So the
worry
Israelis
that
are
someone
not feeling.
on an international scale now, because we've got the US elections coming up in November, and you've got Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump wins, you've got another extremist lunatic, if you will, that could run the strongest country in the world. Does that worry you?
Me, Hazem, or the Palestinians?
The Palestinians.
The Palestinians. Me personally, I'm not worried. The Palestinians, I'm telling you, we care nothing about all what's happening, because we saw that no one is doing anything for us, but we should do for ourselves.
Right.
That's why since last October, the Palestinians, me, one of them, we are all going in an uprising, in an intifada, a peaceful intifada against the Israelis, and we are only demonstrating, and you see that they are executing the Palestinians in front of all the TVs.
In a nutshell, because I've only got 1 minute left, do you think that public opinion in Europe and the United States, or even government opinion towards Israel, has shifted?
Yes, it has been shifted, yes. And we don't care if Trump did win or Hillary Clinton.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. That's all the time I have. Ambassador Hazem Abu Shanab, leader of the Fatah Party's Revolutionary Council. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Also having with us Mr. Sharif Liz, a journalist and political analyst. Thank you very much for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all the time I have for this edition of the Daily Debate. Tomorrow joins you Monam Silhi and a new edition of the program here on Nile TV International. Until then, it's goodbye. Thank you very much, gentlemen.